words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts, and make them acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. You know, Jennifer, I personally think you're kind of crazy for doing this group of people. I mean, I did my best on Sunday to try and talk you out of it, but see, there you go. Another one along the way. You're stepping into a community that has a long history that's been here for a long time. But the story's at a different place than it ever has before, wouldn't you all say? I mean, as we go along, the budget committee met this week, and it was not fun. In all honesty, it wasn't fun. As we think about the income, we think about where our expenses are, we think about, look, we can sit here and look at all of you along the way and say, you know what, we need all of this, but the truth is, based upon what we see, just based on what we see right now, in 5 years we're going to be up against the wall. Some people before left a gift. One in particular left a gift that's being used right now to kind of keep the building and all the other kinds of things up and going, and it's a struggle. And we were looking at that, and we weren't all feeling, it was tough, because that's the reality of it. The reality is, based upon what we see, it's a different place in the life of this congregation. If you've been here a number of years back, I know they could all tell you wonderful stories of when there was a lot more people in here. And I hear the stories about, of course, it didn't look like this, it looked a lot different, but there were kids up here lined up along here, and lots of singing, and I hear all of those stories along. But we're at a different place in our story right now, aren't we? We got to be honest with you. It'd be terrible if to start the message right now. You're coming in for hope, and you're going. But that's the fact of the matter. That's what we're looking at, and we struggled with that because our greatest desire was to figure out a way we could make it better. We wanted to somehow find an answer that we could do. What could we do to make this better? How could we? But no matter what we do, we can turn around and cut something along the way, or cut what we tell you we're going to do along the way, so it makes it sound a lot better. But it's not, because no matter what it is, here's what it is, right? It is, as they say, it is what it is, and there we are. And so there's that struggle that you look at, and you struggle with it, and then you come to lessons like what we have today. That's why you're joining me. That's why you're being a part of this family. Because this is what we have to remember. This church has been here a long time and through a lot of stories, and there has been ups and downs. But who's the one? What's the rock to which this place has been hewn? What's the rock that we build it upon? What is it that is built all on there? It's so important that we remember what it is that we're all a part of as we come today. What it is. Where is it hewn? What quarry does it come from? That's what our first lesson says. But Peter, I want to start out first by looking just at Peter. I love Peter, because Peter tends to stick his foot in his mouth quicker than anybody else. I mean, it comes out like that. It's like he thinks it, and there it is. And I kind of share a lot of qualities with Peter. I tend to chew on the soles of my feet quite a bit along the way as well. So I understand that. But here's the thing. The Roman Catholic Church really venerates Peter. They lift him up because of this particular passage. It says, "On this rock I will build my church." And so they venerate Peter. They have all kinds of there's the belief that they have his bones somewhere, although that hasn't actually been proved along the way. And there's all the other stuff they're building, and they're saying they're building it on Peter. And you would think, based upon this lesson, that's exactly what it says. On this rock, he said, on this rock I will build my church. But what rock is it? See, it's really important to recognize what rock is it. What was it that's built on? So you got to go back here and look at this particular passage, and you say, it says, he's going along and he says, "Who do with little Haley Joel Osment and the classic line that all of you remember, I see dead people. You ever see that? Then little Haley just very, I see dead people. Well, he asked, who do people say that the Son of Man is? And listen to the list. Well, some say John the Baptist, right? He's gone. Some say Elijah. He's gone. Some say it's Jeremiah or one of the prophets. They are saying that they think there's something in the line of the prophetic tradition. But who are they focusing on? They're focusing on the people in the prophetic tradition. Not necessarily are they focusing on the word of the prophetic tradition. Exactly what it was that was said and shared. They were focusing on the people. But then he brings it home and he asks this question. Who do you say that I am? Now there's a pause, because now they've got to actually invest in it. They've got to say, they've got to talk about him. And so everybody shuts up. You ever been in a crowd that does that? They shut up because nobody wants to say something's wrong, right? So they're kind of quiet. And then God loved Peter. Puts his foot right in his mouth, but it just comes out. It's that quick. Blessings and curses. There it was. And he says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus gets really excited. He says, there's only one way you're going to get that message. There's only one that can say that, and that's God. Only God can put that in your heart. And he says, on this, your name is now Peter, the rock. And on this, I will build my church. So we can think, we're building on Peter, right? We can think that. But Peter, look at what happened in his life, where it went from there. Look at his journey. What happened a little bit later in the story? Same gospel. What happened a little bit later in the story? Peter was in a courtyard, right? Peter was in a courtyard, gathered around, and people were asking him, you're one of them, aren't you? Aren't you one of those along the way? And he said, no, I'm not. And he swore, he confessed, he swore, I don't even know this man, he said. Is that not a confession? On this rock? I wonder why we have so much problems in the church if we're going to build it on Peter. And if we're going to build it on Peter, look at the story. Look at where he went. So what did Jesus mean when he said, on this rock I will build my church? Now think about it. Bring it a little closer. What happened in that moment? He confessed who Jesus was. He didn't confess who he was. It wasn't that Peter was exceptional because of who he was. You remember we said that last week. We're not open. You guys are not exceptional people. We are not exceptional as Christians. We are not exceptional people. What makes us exceptional is not who we are. What makes us exceptional is the God whom we worship. That's what makes us exceptional people. Only in that, because Peter can walk away from his confession, and Peter was no different than anybody else, denying Christ at that moment. But what Jesus was building the church on was not Peter. What Jesus was building the church on was his confession. And his confession was not about who Peter was. His confession was about who God is and who God is in Jesus Christ. That's what he was building his confession on. So what about your life? What have you built your confession on? What rock are you hewn from? What story? You go back to the first lesson, and one of the things you hear, remember, this is Isaiah 51, so this is what they call Third Isaiah. Third Isaiah means that the people were already scattered to the wind. They were already kicked out of Jerusalem. They were all over the place. So this is a word coming to people who had lost all of those other things. And the word says, listen to me, you that pursue righteousness, you that seek the Lord. That means you're not exceptional. The righteous are not exceptional. What makes the righteous exceptional is who they desire to be in right relationship with. Not who they are, but who God is. He said, look to the rock from which you were hewn. Now, if their faith was grounded in the church building, what would have happened? When everything else fell apart, if their faith was grounded in Jerusalem, in the land, in all the rest of those things, what would happen to them? Would they be righteous? Would they be desiring? They would have lost it all. That which their faith is. How many times have you talked to people who have lost their faith? And they say, I no longer believe in God. And I've told you this before. That's when I tell them to describe to me the God they don't believe in. Because 9 out of 10 times, well, really, every time I've done it, I can only speak for me, every time I've done it, I have found that the God they don't believe in, I don't believe in either. My faith is not grounded in those things that hurt this person or that drove them away. My faith is not grounded. It's not hewn from that. You that seek righteousness, he says, look to the rock from which you were hewn and the quarry from which you were dug. It is not your history that is exceptional. It's not even the people of your ancestry or where it came from that are exceptional. What is exceptional for St. Mark's Lutheran Church is the one in whom it is believed in throughout this period of time. In the good and the bad, in all of the struggles that have been there, where has your faith been formed? Even when we struggle with money, even when the story looks difficult right now, where is your faith formed? From what rock? Will it disappear? Simply because anything happens to this church building or anything else. We are hewn from the rock of who God is. And then he goes back and he says, look to Abraham, your father, and to Sarah who bore you. He's not telling them to look to Abraham and Sarah because of how exceptional they were. Look what he says. He says, for he was but one when I called him. That's all he was. He was not exceptional when I called him. In fact, he was so far from exceptional, he was the epitome of unexceptional. He was one when I called him, he said. But I blessed him. And I made him many. I made him many. I wrote that story. God's power is what makes us exceptional. God's power is what gives us hope, even when it looks hopeless. God's power is what gives us strength, even when we know we can't see it. That's what you're becoming a part of, Jennifer. Not a community that's got all the answers, because trust me, we don't. But a God who's exceptional is here and present in this place, and we hope to share that and to continue to celebrate with that with you as you make that journey. Because this church is not built on our ancestors, but the faith of our ancestors, is it not? This church is not built on who they were, because they weren't any more exceptional than Abraham and Sarah were. They had nothing when they started. And we're looking at investments and struggling about it because we're afraid we're going to get to the end. And I understand that because we just may. But what rock are we hewn from? What place are we dug from? It didn't start with the lot. But God has promised to be with us in all circumstances. That's what gives us strength. That's what gives us hope. We're not exceptional people, Jennifer. But we have an exceptional God. And from that, this church is huge, isn't it? From that rock, and no matter what happens in our story, that's where we go to. So you can look back and you can look at all of the prophets and you can look at all of the ones in the back and all of our heritage. But Jesus is asking a question of each and every one of us, and it calls us to turn to the rock from which we're hewn, the same one in which they were. And he's asking you to answer this question. Who do you say that I am? Who do you say that God is? You're not exceptional. I'm not exceptional. Man, can we celebrate an exceptional God? Be that answer out in the world. Who do you say that God is? Who do you say that Jesus is?